Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another unique episode of The Different News. Today, I have my friend Peter from a different part of the world. And as you can see, Peter describes himself as the emotional weightlifter. So I met Peter through LinkedIn, but his work is amazingly interesting. Today, we will learn a lot of things about what exactly business is, how do we do business, whether it is all about money, or it is beyond that. So, welcome, Peter, and thank you so much for accepting my invite and being on the Different News. It's a
Well,
pleasure hosting you.
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, so Peter, we all would like to understand from you what exactly the emotional weightlifter means, and please let us know what you do and what business you are into.
All right. Yes, emotional weightlifter is a term that I came up with as like a strap line for what I do. And it was based on client feedback that when they worked with me, they felt an emotional weight lifting off their shoulders. So I thought, well, why don't I call my service that? Because I am not purely a therapist and I'm not purely a coach. I do both. And then I blend in my 40 plus years of work experience and few more years of life experience on top of that. So it becomes a conversation with another person about the issues that they have and which I can then help with. So don't think of me as a traditional therapist. I am a psychologist, I am a coach, but that wasn't how I started. That's what I became later on when I realized that whatever I was hired to do didn't really interest me, but it was the people I worked with and worked for that interested me. So rolling on the years after most recently 18 years as a supply chain consultant, sorting out other people's companies and issues, I thought, why don't I just work with the people who are there? Because I was interested in the guys in the forklift trucks and the people in the boardroom and everybody in between. So why not? So I changed completely and went solo after having done my sessions sort of as a side hustle, evenings and weekends. Today I work mostly with the legal profession or anybody who works within the legal industry. So it doesn't have to be lawyers. And people often ask me, well, Peter, if I'm not a lawyer, can I then work with you? So of course you can. I've never turned anyone down for not being a lawyer. But the legal profession has a lot of mental health issues. They have had that for generations, and a lot of it is self-inflicted, and other bits are life that just happens, because behind it all, as you will hear today, are human beings. So we can have all our fancy job titles and functions in life, but behind it all, we're just human beings.
Absolutely.
So I do work with the individual lawyers when they reach crisis point or getting towards crisis point, or they simply want to make some changes in life. But I can also work with law firms when they think it's a little bit tough going. Why are we not firing on all cylinders? And then it's typically a communication, a process, and a people issue. So I'm not the one who teach people on sales and marketing or IT. It's down to taking the irritants away from our daily lives, and then our mental health improves.
Amazing. I think you rightly said the profession, of course, like the field I come from, the medical, legal, all
Mm.
these are people facing professions. So, of course, when it's legal, I believe there's a lot of different stuff to do and a lot of arenas of kind of human characters that they face. And as you rightly say, that there's a lot of emotional burnout or stress inside. So I think you are doing a fantastic job. And just curious, is there any specific reason that you chose people who are into the field of law or legal, or is it like just by your intuition you wanted to do?
I didn't just pick it out of thin air. There were a couple of times in my own life where I wanted to become a lawyer. So I've always liked the profession, but the reasons for me to join the profession and start the years of study that you need to do, they just weren't strong enough. And I thought, yeah, I can't see myself actually going through the education to go into an industry where I'm not entirely sure I want to be. Um, but that doesn't mean I don't admire what they do and I don't appreciate what they do. So I thought I have this somehow connection with the industry that it makes sense for me to want to work with them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So, Peter, I'm also an entrepreneur right now. You are also one. So, today we are focusing on a very important aspect of building businesses because we have a lot of myths around, including though we have facts also. So, the thing is that what I have also from my journey I understood that when we really want to do good business, it is more about building relationships. So my question to you would be something like this,
Mm.
like for example, um, when two people start a business relationships, are there any specific first things that they might focus on, so that this relationship will grow and it will mutually turn to be a very good long term successful business relationship? So uh, yeah.
That is a huge question because business uh, people who have known me for long enough will know that I always say business is not about business. Business is about relationships. And the better the relationships, the better the business. That's all very nice and textbooky, but then how do we go and do that? And I actually think it starts with one particular relationship, and that's the one that you have with yourself. So if you are in a bad place emotionally, mentally, um, you are going to take that into your business, and that informs how you do business or relationships with other people. So I usually look in the opposite direction of where everybody else looks. So yes, you can talk about you have to build trust and you have to do this and that, but how do we do that? If your attitude to business is just the money, grab the money, you don't care about anybody else, well, that's how you're going to treat other people. That's fine. I can't change that unless you're willing to change that. But don't expect good things to happen. So if your reason to go into business or operate in some sort of business context is to make things work and to get mutual benefit out of it, that is where you will start to build the relationships that actually work. And the thing is, all relationships are not created equal. So I spoke to somebody about this a long time ago, and she said, "Well, I don't have any business relationships. There's only me in the business." Okay, well, do you have a bank account? Yeah. Do you have emails? Yeah. Okay. And they said, okay, Peter, shut up. I get it. So business relationships is about anyone who has some sort of connection into your business. They could be in your business, like employees, or they could be your suppliers, your customers. Anybody you're linked in with on LinkedIn, for example, is a business connection. May not be a very close one, but it's still a connection. It's still a relationship that is a message now and again or a comment on a post now and again. And then you've got your leads, your potential clients, you've got your clients. So what I think we have to do is decide, why are we in business? Are my customers here for me, or am I here for my customers? Again, it's about attitude. And if you have an attitude which says, yeah, I like to make this work. I like relationships. For me is about like-minded people or people who are equally interested in what I have to offer and what they have to offer, because it is a two-way street, isn't it? Then I think you're off to a good start.
I think that's a very practical insight, Peter, that you said. And thank you for that. Well, as we move ahead in life, in like, for example, right now I'm focusing on the topic today we are talking about. So, uh, of course, we have also made our own mistakes, but since you come from such a variable and variety of experience in your life, so if we the main purpose, I mean, the main thing in business is about trust. It all starts there.
Mm.
So would you do you have any insights, or would you like to share any specific type of actions or focus that we should do to really build relationships or focus on trust? How can we build trust in business relationships? So I think your experience and your insights will be very valuable for entrepreneurs like me and many who are listening to us today. Yeah.
I I think there's a couple of ingredients in we need to be aware of with trust. The first one is you have to give before you can get. So if you can't demand trust if you're not willing to give trust yourself. And let me give you a sort of real life example of someone I used to work with. He never trusted anybody. That was his default position. I don't trust anybody. My default position is I trust people until they have proven untrustworthy. And he was disappointed all the time. I was disappointed sometimes, but not very often. So if you give people a chance to trust you, they they will want to trust you back, and the trust just builds. There's always going to be someone who's a predator who's just out there to get what they can, what they want, and you can't legislate for that. You can't avoid that. But you have to give people a chance. So one of the ways you can do that is to turn up consistently and be honest about what you do, say what you do, and do what you say, type of thing, so that people know that when they speak to me, for example, that's what they get today, tomorrow, and next week as well. So you have to be consistent. I'm desperately trying to avoid the word authentic here because it's such an overused term, but because you can be an authentic bastard if you're that all the time. So be consistent, be open. And I think one of the things that people forget is that the people you work with, suppliers, customers, whatever, they also know stuff. So let other people show that they too have some expertise, and that is not just yourself. We are very focused on, yes, I can do this, I can do that, but we forget to listen. So listening is a technique, but it's a huge ingredient in building trust as well.
Thank you so much. I think you just told the right thing, because if we don't hear out, then we don't know even what we are trying to do for the person, right? I
Mhm.
mean, and giving is the first step towards trust, because that's how people know that we are approachable, or at least we can work to some extent. And thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for that answer. So Peter, like we I think we have seen a lot of examples around the world of successful businesses, right?
Mhm.
So since we're talking about trust and giving and everything, but still I'm sure that people, when many successful businesses are there, but if we go deep down into it, probably we find that there are trust issues. So what do you think, like people actually make subtle mistakes when it comes to business relationships that eventually destroy trust? So have any experiences like that, or some examples that you can give us to enlighten us?
I think it is it's a case of when people have a hidden agenda. They
uh,
say one thing, but they actually mean another. Um, if it's all about what's in it for me, so instead of thinking what's in it for us, what can we get from this relationship, then it becomes very one-sided, very not even transactional, but almost like predatory in a way. Let me just see what I can get from this person. What can I get? What can I get? And not giving anything back. Then that will never build trust. But of course, the corner cutting, the hidden agendas, those sort of sneaky practices that really shows that you are a different person behind it all than the one that you're portraying yourself to be. Very often you will hear the saying, treat I treat people the way I want to be treated, as if that's as a way of building trust. I don't actually buy that one, because the way I want to be treated may be very offensive to you, Gargi. I'm not saying that it is, but it could be. And then I would go and treat you in a way that totally suits me, but completely forgets about the other person. That doesn't build trust. So if instead you treat people the way they want to be treated, then you will build that relationship far better. It is also, and I admit that, it is hard work. There's more to do. You have to listen more. You have to listen between the lines. You have to pay attention. But it's that attention that starts building the trust, because the other person will immediately understand that, hey, here's someone who cares about me, not just about what I can provide that person with. And then I think things develop from that point onwards. So it is about the people behind the service or the product or whatever it is we're dealing with.
Right, right. I think you mentioned in another, like, previous, like when you were explaining my previous question also, like, I think it's all about maintaining transparency when we are trying to build, particularly build good business relationships and taking things forward. So I think it's a very important parameter that you highlighted, Peter. Thank you so much for that. And like, I have seen that I have seen a lot of people who are doing absolutely good business in terms of numbers. It's good. So basically, many professional relationships today focus only and primarily purely on transaction. It's more like transactional. So how can someone really move from transactional interactions to genuine loyalty in business?
Again, not all relationships are created equal. Sometimes you have to be transactional, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have a particularly warm relationship with my bank. I don't know anyone at my bank. It is transactions on a piece of paper back and forward. But when I do speak to an advisor, I speak to them as a human being. So I think we have to realize that, yes, of course, we are in business to earn a living, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to earn lots of money or just enough money or whatever makes sense to you. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we have to remember is spreadsheets doesn't do it on their own. Nothing happens without people. So we should focus on the people who make the numbers happen instead of focusing on the numbers. And that is where we often see in big business, and sometimes small business as well, that it boils down to income and to expenditure. So you have to earn more money than you spend. That's the basics of it, isn't it? And what's the most expensive thing in your business? Well, that is people. People want salaries. People want holidays. They get paid when they're on holiday, but they don't produce anything. So people are very expensive. And the more experience they get, the more expensive they get. So when times are tough, compassion usually goes out the window, and we fire people. And then still expect the business to be running and growing with fewer people in it. Then we add in some technology and think, we can replace people with technology. But you can change job roles and you can remove some jobs, but then you create others. So there will always be a need for people. And I think that is where we need to keep coming back to, no matter what kind of business we are in. It does not happen without people. Just one person. Nothing happens. So this is where we have to step beyond the transactional thing. What can I get from that person back and forth? And think about, how can I make that person want to do what I would like them to do?
That's amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. So usually, we all know that when we keep two vessels in a kitchen, they will collide and there will be some noise, even if it is uh, to the extent the most modern kitchen we have. Why I give this example, Peter? Because when it comes to business and that of business relationships, we often get into conflicts or differences of opinions with our business partners that way,
Mm.
and probably, it leads to some kind of conflict or failure. So my question to you is that how should business leaders handle difficult situations or critical moments to strengthen their relationships rather than, just walking away or breaking that long term relationship that has been built through years? So is there any tips or tricks that you can share, if I may put it like that?
The thing about relationships is a little bit, it's a funny one because they begin before they start and they also end before they finish. So if I wanted to work with you, I would check you out on LinkedIn and social media and all sorts of things. So I know a little bit about you beforehand. And then I've been in business relationships where I know this is, oh, I can't stand that person. So of course my relationship had ended, but we hadn't broken up. I hadn't resigned or anything like that. So to be okay in a crisis means you have to have worked on maybe preventing the crisis or maybe building up a relationship so that when the crisis happens, the people you work with are there to lift the burden with you. So relationships are not something that you do to other people. It's something that you do with people, which means that, yes, if you are in a senior position, there's a lot of responsibility on you to make sure that it happens. But if you are on the other side, you have a responsibility to working with the senior person. That is inside the hierarchy. But if you have a client-supplier relationship, again, you have to find some sort of level playing field where you are both parties working in each other's interest. So the whole crisis point is where you need to take leadership, make decisions sometimes, and they can be unpopular but necessary. So good relationships isn't about people pleasing. It isn't about saying yes all the time. It's about saying yes and no at the right time and explain your reasons so that people know that if I say yes, I mean yes. If I say no, I mean no, and there's a reason for it. So it's a build up over time where you show who you are consistently and you build that trust so that you're also open enough to say, guys, this is not going great. We are heading towards a bump in the road in our business. I need your help. And then people will help you. But if you sweep it all under the carpet and you pretend nothing is wrong and you just blame somebody else, then it's not going to work. So what leaders need to do in a time of crisis is all the work they've done before the crisis even happened. And that's why they're leaders and not managers.
Very, very thoughtfully put, and amazing, very powerful message and answer, I would say,
Thank you.
for this question. Yeah, yeah. So, uh, looking back, the career that you have had, like, can you share an example where you have seen a relationship, not a strategy, that became a real driver for a long-term business? Any example that comes to your mind?
Hmm. I have burned a number of bridges. And I'm not proud of it because relationships is something that we learn. It's not something that we're just born with the ability somehow. We have to go and make some mistakes. We have to go and see, hey, that went well. Let's do more of that. So one example I can think of is probably one of the latest jobs I did in my previous business. It was again. An aside here is relationships also have an awful lot to do with culture. And of course, I understand my culture. And if I were to work with people from another culture, I would need to learn about that culture. So I don't put my foot in it an awful lot. So again, showing the respect for other people. But we were a UK team working in Germany for a German client. And we had been dumped in there by an American corporation that sort of pulled the strings in the background. I can't be more specific because they're going to be breaking all sorts of NDAs and what have you. But we worked as a team of UK consultants. I was the only German-speaking person. So by speaking the language, I also knew more about culture, German culture, than my English colleagues did. So we worked in the same room with members of the client's team. So the client was always in the room. And we forgot because we were just one big team. And then our natural behaviors started spilling out and what have you. And it wasn't always pretty. But I didn't think about it. I just did what I do. And a couple of years later, one of those members from the client's team got in touch, and he became one of my own private coaching clients. So he had seen me in action. I had behaved the way I thought was appropriate under the circumstances and worked with him and others. But I was the one he chose to work with when setting up his own business, simply because, well, he had road tested me in a way, hadn't he? I was not the arrogant Brit who came and thought we knew everything and completely ignored the German ways of speaking and behaving and being polite to one another. So somehow that worked. It wasn't a deliberate act on my part. It was just reading the room, understanding the culture, knowing that these people know stuff as well. As I said earlier, allow them to be experts in what they're experts at. At the end of the day, we only know about their business because they tell us about it. So that I think is hopefully an example that answers your question. It was not a strategy of mine that I was going to see, oh, do I have potential clients here because I know that I'm going to start my own business? No, it just happened. He contacted me and we've been working together for a couple of years, and it will stop because he's now ready to fly solo, but we still have a chat now and again on a sort of more friend colleague basis.
I think, yes, definitely it answers my question, and that experience brings a lot of insights as well. I think it is a very interesting conversation which we are doing today. But as we all have the stick of time clicking in front of us, so it's always good to have conversations and keep our conversations on. Just that any message that you want to give out to the world, particularly since we are talking business, we're talking about business relationships, probably entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, any message from your side that you'd like to share?
I think it's not brave to show your human side. I think it's a necessity. There's always emotions involved in what we do. We can't stop those popping into our head, but we can decide how long we keep them for and how deep we let them go and how we let them affect what we do. So any thought that you can just be the business person and completely be devoid of any emotions, it's not going to work. And if you pretend to be that robotic and that transactional, I think you're not going to find it easy to find people to work with. So bring the human side into your business, but also be aware of the business's needs, because after all, we're not just there to give away things and to have a friendly chat over a coffee. We can do that as well. Got mine here. Because you need to have your business head on. But business, as I said, is not about business. It's about relationships. And if you mess them up left, right, and center, you will be very alone and your business will not go anywhere.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing your valuable experiences and insight today. It was wonderful talking to you, and I think we will catch up in the future more with such insightful conversations. Just to end, before we live apart and we end this conversation, if you can describe a bit in a short, like what exactly you do again, like if you can
Mhm.
briefly tell, and if
Yep.
somebody is interested to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Okay. The best way to reach me is LinkedIn. This is where I hang out. This is where my clients live. So you can find me under Peter Abrahamson, or the Emotional Weightlifter, or Better Lives. Um, Better Lives is my company, but behind that sits a very boring limited company. So I'm trading as Better Lives. I work with people who have got to a point in their life where something isn't quite right. you know, Nobody goes to see the doctor and say, "Hey, I am so fine. I'm good." so, so people come to me when something is bothering them. It could be personal relationships, it could be business problems, it could be anxiety, depression, OCD, bereavement, all sorts of things that plays on our mind and makes the everyday living more difficult than it needs to be. And something like that builds up, typically. So some people come to me when they are at crisis point, mentally and emotionally. Other people when they can see it coming. Um, and then there are those who say, "Look, I'm standing still in my life. I want something different." And that's where we have more sort of coaching than therapy. And we figure out a plan to get from A to B in a way that makes sense to you. It's not about me. It's about you. And for the law firms I work with, they typically find that there's not enough smiles. It takes an awful long time to get things done. It's a bit sluggish, and what can we do? We're making money, but, and that's where with my years of experience fixing other people's companies, I ask the questions that they don't ask themselves. And it is very often about, what irritates you, what gets in the way of doing the work that you do. And then we take that away. So my take on mental health and well-being is not the one where you add things on top. We think, oh, let's do some mindfulness or some yoga. Fantastic techniques at the right time and at the right place. But if you can't stand working in the company you work for, no amount of yoga is going to change that. So you have to take out the root causes and look at those first. So that's what I do. It's all, of course, confidential. It's all non-judgmental. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm here to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And I know that when you go to coaching school, for example, you're being taught that coaching is very separate from therapy. Therapy is about fixing the past and get the present okay, and coaching is about taking you from where you are today and in some way into the future. But I have never had a therapy client who didn't need a bit of coaching. I have never had a coaching client who didn't need a bit of therapy. So as I can do both, I do both, and this is what merges into what becomes emotional weightlifting.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing all the details. And
Thank you
I
for having
think
me. It's been
so.
a pleasure.
Yeah. So if anybody you want to see what Peter does, and I think you are very active on LinkedIn, so you can follow Peter on LinkedIn, and of course you can reach out to him through LinkedIn. Thank you, Peter. Thank you once again.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. Take care.